Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Daily US. I'm Matthew Shuckman, and today we're here to talk about Masters of the Universe. It's Masters of the Universe, but of course, a lot of people will know it as He-Man, so we'll talk about it as the He-Man movie in a sense. And before we get into it, yes, He-Man was a very big part of my childhood, so there's a lot that kind of goes into how I feel about this movie, in terms of how well it did or how well it didn't do. So let's just jump into it and talk about the negatives and positives of Masters of the Universe, and let's start with the negatives. Even though it is true to what the story of Masters in the Universe and He-Man was always trying to tell, this is nothing new. You know, you're getting your battles of good versus evil, and your unsuspecting hero who needs to kind of learn where they're going to be for their introduction to new audiences. There's nothing that's really shining and bright and brand new about Masters in the Universe that you haven't seen before. That's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but it's not going to give it extra points because, what else are we doing here? It feels like it's almost like a lost cause at certain points. And while Masters of the Universe in general always was such a hokey product in a lot of ways, it was, there to shell out toys to start with and then gets turned into a cartoon. So there are so many wacky names and wacky characters, and they're not meant to be taken so seriously in a lot of ways. But I think they went a little too far in trying to make jokes out of some of it, when it's fine to do, and even the original cartoons used to do it. But I felt they leaned on a little too thick, especially when it comes to, of course, characters like Fisto. One joke's fine, two jokes is okay as well, but after you get to the third one, it feels like you really burst the bubble on it after a certain point. So, you got to take a little bit of a few points off for that. There is also what I think would I'm going to put it in the negative column, even though I think it's more of a positive. But for most viewers, I think they maybe want a little bit more explanation into certain things compared to them being breezed by because they are things that are fairly obvious to what's going on in the story or obvious to people who are fans of or know the history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So I can see where that could be a negative to certain people. So I'm going to add a little bit of that into the negative column, into where, besides the opening tale to kind of set people into the universe that exists, there's a lot of stuff that's just brushed by. And again, I actually think that's a positive, but I can see where it becomes a negative, and I do think that there was a certain lack of further explanation that maybe would help out other people for certain things. Not a lot. Most of it gets across very well if you've never been in this universe before. But it's hard not to pay attention to that as well. With all that as well, I think that, again, the whole having the original Masters of the Universe film from the 80s, with Dolph Lundgren, which was much further apart from the original Masters of the Universe cartoon, and or comics than anything else, did the whole He-Man comes to Earth story. And now, while He-Man on Earth here is done differently and it's not done very long, it just felt like it's a little bit of a lazy attempt again to go like, how do we just tell a story to introduce him, but we pull him away so he introduces you to all of it, and by doing that we bring him to Earth again. And again, it's actually a short amount of the movie, but it just felt like that's something we've seen before, not just the Masters of the Universe. A lot of these retellings of tales where they bring back this character and they just bring it to Earth because it's easier to do here on Earth than thinking about fantastical places. Even though, again, in this movie, most of it takes place in Eternia, so it's only a small part of it. But it is a little disappointing that they have to go again with that storyline of, oh, he's been on Earth for a little bit. Doesn't how do we tell the story to make it make sense to people who don't know it? We'll put him on Earth and he'll tell you the whole tale. But now on to the positives. Look, it's a fun ride. It really is. It's not meant to be taken super seriously. They do a lot of great callbacks for fans who do know of the show and or how the original cartoons played out. And I also feel that even though there are a few chunks that last a little longer than I hope they would, besides the opening section again of having to give you the whole backstory and the whole little Earth portion of it, the rest of the movie moves real fast without having to hold on. We don't have to go through what normally would be like training montages or, helping him to figure out his powers and stuff like that. It just moves. It goes on once he's there, and once it starts going on with these real battles, it just goes on and on and on. They don't go backwards or hold off a little bit till we have to move to the next piece. It just moves to the next piece very swiftly. And I really appreciated that immensely, because that's something you don't see in a lot of films, whether they are dramas, action, sci-fi, whatever it may be. The pace of this, while it doesn't feel super fast, I guess, it moves along in a very well paced and formed beginning to end, and I got to give it credit for that. There's also, again, this is coming for fans specifically. I will say that there is some great stuff in the second big battle with Spikor specifically that I think is hilarious and so well done, and something that I'm surprised we kind of haven't seen before. And I really like the way they did it. The character work from everybody, it really fits for a lot of what's supposed to be there in Eternia. And I don't want to give away if you may know by now or not if there are certain characters pop up here or there. You'll find that out for yourself when you see it. There will be some things that you'll be disappointed don't show up. There will be other things that you're very happy do show up. Jared Leto, the whole, everybody, oh, Jared Leto's playing Skeletor kind of thing. Look, yes, Skeletor does start off for the most part as more serious than you would expect compared to the cartoons, but they do eventually at the end get to that more hokey version of Skeletor, and it works out fine. It works out well. I will say, I realized I skipped this in the negatives. That is one of the other negatives I do have, which is that Skeletor's minions seem to be way too scared of him than they should have been. He was much more of a domineering master of evil compared to just an evil master who everybody kind of loves and follows. He's much more menacing and mean to them and hurtful to them than I would have expected, which is a little weird. But otherwise, the rest of it works out. There's nothing really to complain about there. Some people may be concerned that Adam's muscles don't get as big for He-Man. It just works. It actually works better that it doesn't go so far out of the box in that sense. I think they did it the right way here. You got to give them credit. There is just so much to enjoy about it in a lot of ways without having to think about why are you doing this, why are you doing that. None of that matters. This is that old MST3K feeling of sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Don't question everything. I know there's certain people who aren't going to like it because they just think it's hokey and silly, but it's supposed to be hokey and silly. It's supposed to be that way. Yeah, it is also weird that Man in Arms is a little bit of a drunk, in this version. But again, they do have to try and build their own story around it. So it all works out very well. I would give it as a final grade a B, close to a B plus as well. I don't love it. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever made, but I am nostalgic for it, and I do feel that it was hard not to smile a lot of times when you see things like Mecha Neck wrapping people up around and then throwing them across the side, or Ram Man flying across the screen. You gotta enjoy it. What can I say? So thanks for joining me. Until next time, have a great one.
All that stuff that only exists in legends and bedtime stories. Talking tigers, spaceships, and magic swords that can make a man as mighty as a god. Where I come from, that stuff is real. Why did you send me away?
I wanted you to be safe. So I sent you to a place I knew that they'd never find you. There's...
This obsession with nerd stuff and sword things, it's not a good look for human resources.
I know it sounds crazy, but that sword is gonna show me the way home.
Sir, you can't do that.
Don't worry, the sword's mine.
Hang on, it's about to get weird.
supposed to do.
Take the sword. You protect them.